Hi, my name's Ian Wallace. I call myself the Messed Up Counsellor, which is quite an intriguing name. And the podcast you're about to see is one of many, and we've been doing about a year now. So you can look back and see all the things we've talked about with guests and on my own over the process. A lot of the information I use in the podcast initially came from the first book I wrote in 2011. Why do we do that? What do we do about it? And that came out and was the basis of all my learning, understanding at that time, which is going back a few years now. And that process of understanding how the world works for people, how we can alter, change, and adapt it, was kind of what it was there to do with the initial stages. I've made that now an audiobook as well, so it's available on Amazon as an audio file that you can check out and you can download to your heart's content, and hopefully that will be helpful. In the podcasts, we're trying to look at all sorts of things that about human interactions, human dynamics, the world, and how we might understand it more or change it more. So it gives you lots of ideas and tools in order to think about and look at different ways of being or dealing with things. And hopefully that brings people together and makes people more able to connect and communicate. Lots of topics. If you ever want to connect to me, just obviously drop me a comment on the podcast and I shall try as much as possible to reply. And if you've got any ideas of things that we might want to use on the podcasts, then please let me know. My name's Ian Wallace. Thanks for looking and thanks for listening. Hi, and welcome to another podcast from Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. What I'd like to look at today is something that I get asked an awful lot when I'm working with clients where there's been a breakup of relationships. When we're in relationships, we kind of give up some of ourselves to the other person. We meld together, we bring together, we merge. So one person will have some skills and abilities, the other one will have some skills and abilities. So if we're not good at something or not as good at something, we will give that up to the other person. Now, it's not just about jobs, functions, things like that. We might give up some of our conversational process. We might give up some of our process around confidence, self-esteem, a whole range of things that we meld together, we merge. So when we come out of a relationship, naturally, if we've been in a relationship for a while, those pieces haven't been used for a while. So we don't automatically start using them again. So we might find that we have a reduced confidence, for example, if we've given some of our process up to the other person and they've taken the lead and they've made things happen and all those kind of things. So we might be awkward with that. We might not have that time to reconnect with that part of ourselves. So there's a phrase that people use, finding oneself, finding yourself when we come out of relationships. And although that's not necessarily an easy one to kind of understand fully, is a phrase people use. I think it's true. I think we have to find those bits of ourselves that we haven't really used in a while. And depending on how long that relationship is or how much we've allowed that other person to lead, to take control, to kind of move us forward, will depend on how good we are at finding those parts of ourselves. So where this becomes a problem for some people is if we move out of a relationship and we move straight into another relationship, then that can be really hard because we don't have that time to find ourselves. We don't have time to use those bits again, become familiar with those bits again. So we kind of move into another relationship where it's not completely us. There's bits that are missing, in a sense. So that new relationship partner might facilitate those bits, might make those bits happen, might take that lead, take that kind of responsibility. But maybe they wouldn't, because maybe they don't have that skill or that ability. So what we can find is that the new relationship initially, usually relationships are buzzing. There's a lot of energy in them. The honeymoon period, as we sometimes call it, where everything's just happening and you're only seeing each other for 1-2 days a week, whatever. Then that process won't necessarily be heightened as a situation that we no longer have. So we haven't found ourselves, those bits of ourselves. The other person can't replace those bits because they don't have them. So we get into this kind of relationship where it works, it's exciting, it's fun, it's connected. But then when we move that relationship to be more committed, maybe we move in together, maybe we take that next step, or we see each other more, then that can be a real hard process to make it work because there is a bit that's missing. So we might utilize our skills, our abilities to put that bit in, so we might have given up our responsibility, our confidence, our self-esteem to another person. So we might be able to reconnect with that. We might be able to find that piece of ourselves. So there's this aspect of time in between one relationship breaking down and ending and another one starting. If we don't find that time to find ourselves, start using those bits that we've put into hibernation, for example, then we might not feel comfortable. We might not feel connected fully. It might give us a different view of what this relationship looks like. I kind of think that, and it's not for everybody this, but for some people, having that space and time in between relationships is helpful. Sometimes it's essential, to be fair, because we will reconnect with those bits that we've been in hibernation with, and we'll start using them again, and then we'll move forward. And we'll grow and we'll develop. And then we move into another relationship. We're kind of the full version of us. Those bits are no longer missing. So the person we're newly connecting to gets the whole of us, not part of us. And that then can start a process of reconnection. We're all different. None of us are the same, obviously. And for some people, this will not be an issue. They will move from one relationship into another, and it won't cause issues or problems or breakdowns in communication. For other people, it does make a bigger difference. And sometimes, if we then find ourselves in that new relationship and we build that confidence, self-esteem, whatever it is we're kind of getting, then we'll be different at some point with that new relationship partner. Now, if they've not seen this confidence before, this self-esteem growing, this part of us that is becoming more apparent, then they're connecting with a relationship with components that they didn't know we had. So they might feel unsettled. They might say, "Who is this person? I don't know you anymore." All these kind of phrases. And that new relationship might actually break down much quicker. Now, in the counselling room, what we tend to find is that there's a pattern with people moving to new relationships too quickly or don't give enough time between relationships. And they'll come to us and they'll say, the last 5 relationships I've had have been great at the beginning, and then all of a sudden we don't fit. And that process means that could be this not spending time finding ourselves is happening between relationships. So if we can take time, if we can find ourselves, that doesn't mean to say you can't see anybody in this time. Obviously you can, but not see each other in a sense, to look at maybe forming longer committed relationships to start with. Some people need people. We all have a need to be needed, usually as human beings. Some people really need people in their world and their lives to create that whole, that feeling comfortable, feeling connected, feeling at one. And that aspect, that process can create issues and problems, as I've said. But to grow good quality relationships, I would suggest we need to be all of us, not part of us, because then the new person is getting us fully as we are. And we're all developing and growing over a period of time, so we're never the same month on month, year on year. We develop, we grow, we become, and that's a constant process. And with every interaction we have, with every experience we have, we'll change, we'll be different, usually. So that process means that when we're growing, when we're changing, then we're never going to be the same year after year. So if we're in a relationship where we are growing and changing and the other partner kind of got with us and they liked us the way we were, that might cause some issues with the security of the relationship. You're no longer the person I connected to, I met. Those kind of phrases are not uncommon. And so as we're growing, we should, hopefully, have a communication with the partner we're with and talk about our growing, our developing, our becoming, whatever that looks like, how we're changing. Then the other person can be aware that this change is a natural process. It's not something where they don't want to be with us. They don't want to be connected to us. And that developmental process means that the relationship benefits, because the more we can be us, I would suggest, the happier we will be and the more connected we will feel comfortable with. Now, both people are doing that process of change. What I find sometimes when I'm working with couples is that they have changed, as we all do. That's natural. But they haven't actually communicated those changes. So the couple in front of me can, in a sense, grow apart. They can be different with each other. And it's sometimes a shock that people have changed that much. Certainly where you find couples where maybe one's been working away, when maybe they've been on a tour of duty with the services. Maybe they've started to have children that have left the home, so going to university or becoming married or moving away. And so the couple kind of have this really weird, disconnected process of who they are at that moment. Which is why sometimes when children do leave home, we call it the empty nest syndrome. So one person has been looking after their needs or requirements, and all of a sudden that's no longer needed. What do we do then? What do we do with our time that we used to spend looking after those people? And that change can be really, really hard because it's just happened. We've probably not given any forethought to what we're going to do when they leave and when they grow and develop and become. So we lose that connection. We lose that aspect of a part of who we are, that provider or support or people who we kind of look after. So those major changes, of which they are major changes, then we're in this weird place where we don't really know who we are because those pieces have gone, those needs, requirements have gone. So we could find ourselves with our relationship partners feeling distant. You'll find this when people become retired, for example. They will not necessarily have planned what that retirement looks like, what we're going to do with it, how we're going to work it, how is it going to change our worlds and our lives? We sometimes just retire. And then you can find the couple not necessarily knowing each other because they haven't been connected 24/7, for example. They've only been connected sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day if you take sleeping into account. So that process of being connected and being together more can create its own problems. I suppose what I'm saying is, with any change of relationships, have a think about, saying if it's a relationship that you know is going to end, like becoming retired or children leaving home, have a think about and put your head into that process of what this is going to look like. How is it going to adapt me as a person and change me as a person, and what am I going to do with that change? And have a conversation with your relationship partner and saying, this is where I am, this is what's going on for me, this is how this is changing me. And then, hopefully, you'll ride that storm, that disturbance in the relationship structure. So even though it's a crass thing to say, finding oneself, I think it's the right thing to say, because I think that process of finding oneself is really important. It allows us to be fully connected to our world. So you might find somebody who has been mid-20s, late 20s. They've looked after themselves, they've fed themselves, they've clothed themselves, they've made their world okay. And then they come together with another partner, and that partner is, say, a really good cook, for example. And together, great. That partner that's a really good cook takes over the cooking responsibilities. Now, the other person's looked after themselves. It's not that they cannot cook, generally speaking. They can do something, even if it's only beans on toast, of which I like. Good at beans on toast. And that process of allowing that other person's skill, ability, being a good cook, takes over that nurturing role, that food preparation role. And then that relationship breaks down and they end it. So you may not have cooked for yourself or for other people for a long period of time. Don't mean to say you can't do it, but initially there will be this place, this vacuum where the other person used to provide. And it will take you possibly some time to get the confidence in cooking again, confidence in looking after yourself, confidence in what you need to look after yourself, the ingredients of cooking. But once you've got that, because you used to do it before, so you can do it, once you've got that, then you will be okay. But in the interim, there will be this loss, this need to reconnect, this need to re-educate, this need to bring that part of you back that's been in hibernation. When you're doing those processes, the best thing to do is to think about, if we can, what is going to happen when. Put your head into those places. Try to figure out what you do with it, where you go, how do you reconnect. And socialise might be something that you've not done before for a while. And that's going to be a major change. That's going to be a different world in socialising sometimes, depending on how long you've been in a relationship. So going out there and finding people again, connecting to hobbies, interests, processes that you find interesting. And that will help you to grow and become you more. But there'll be that temporary in-between place where it'll be a bit weird. You'll be a bit unsure, a bit insecure, a bit unsettled, because you haven't found those bits of you yet. Don't get hooked into it that this is going to be the same forever, this world that I'm temporarily in. Find those pieces of yourself that you used to have. You will still have them. It'll still be there, but you'll have to connect to it. You might have to re-understand it. You might have to retrain, in a sense, to find those pieces, because the world will have changed. But finding yourself is a good thing to do if you do end a relationship or some aspect of your world's changed with that disconnection process. And then, hopefully, you will grow together. If it's something like redundancy or the kids leaving home, you'll grow together with your partner. You'll have good conversations about how that growth is working and what's happening and how you're being different. Or if you've ended a relationship, to find yourself these pieces that have been put into hibernation. Then the next relationship you go into will be much more connected on a equal footing. You'll be fully you, hopefully. They will be fully them, because both people are going through the same process. And you can have that connection with the people you are now, not the people you were. If you can have those conversations, if you can keep that dialogue going, then the chances are it'll be okay. Can't guarantee that with any relationship, but it's got more chance of being okay. And you will feel fulfilled, you will feel full, you will feel confident, you'll grow in yourself, and that's going to be a much better person to meet another person to have a relationship. Hopefully that's made sense. Finding yourself is probably a crass thing to say, but it is true. Find yourself, be you, whatever you is. Whatever you is okay. And people then connect to you, not a part of you. And they're getting that honesty, that openness of understanding who you are. Enjoy life. Enjoy your relationships. And be the best you can be. And anybody with you should want you to be the best you can be. Enjoy. Take care.